Today is Friday, the first day of the month of Av. It's Rosh Chodesh Av. It begins a period of 9 days when we are to refrain from eating meat and drinking wine. Actually, most communities on the day of Rosh Chodesh, which is today, they're still allowed to eat meat. And Shabbat, of course, the person is allowed to eat meat on Shabbat within the 9 days. Very, very few communities or certain families have a custom not to eat meat even on the day of Shabbat, but that's not the common practice for most communities. So we're allowed to eat meat on Shabbat. The restriction of eating meat applies during the week to any meat, whether it's beef or chicken, not allowed. Fish is allowed. Now, in terms of drinking wine, we don't drink wine, but other alcoholic beverages like beer or liquor would be permitted. It's just the wine that is not permitted. What about the wine of Havdalah? You've done Havdalah and now you have a cup of wine. You're allowed to drink from that cup of wine of Havdalah. What about meat that you cooked for Shabbat and there is some meat left over? Well, some people have Seudah Revi'it every Masei Shabbat and they have meat. Also, yeah, you will be allowed to eat the meat that is left over from Shabbat. Not that you must, but you're allowed to eat it if that's something you usually do Seudah Revi'it and it's left over from Shabbat, permitted to eat it even though it's no longer Shabbat. This restriction of eating meat applies, of course, to everyone. However, if someone for health reasons has doctor's instructions to eat meat, or maybe it's a nursing mother that the doctor said she should not refrain from eating meat, or maybe a very young child who's weak and needs, if it's indicated from a medical standpoint, then of course that would supersede the custom of not eating meat, and a person would be allowed to eat meat during these 9 days. The other thing about eating meat, it's a custom. So if a person, let's say, forgot that it's during the 9 days and he has a piece of meat in front of him and he made the bracha, Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, she'akol niya bidbaro, and oops, he remembers that it's during the 9 days. So what does he do? He should taste a little bit of meat and refrain from eating the rest, but he must taste at least a little bit. And the reason for that is that while it's a very strong custom not to eat meat during this period, there is a more important aspect, that the name of Hashem should not be pronounced in vain. And therefore, since he already said a bracha, if he doesn't taste from that meat, the bracha with the name of Hashem will be in vain, and that will be a much more serious transgression than if he was to eat meat during the 9 days. So therefore, he should taste some of the meat. If there is a Brit Milah, a celebration of a Brit Milah, then you'll be allowed to serve meat as part of the menu. It's permissible, and all the guests that are present can partake in that. Now the Mohel, the Sandak, the one who sits in Kisei Eliyahu, and the father of the child, they are allowed to eat meat not just on the Seudah of Brit Milah on that day, but also the rest of the Seudat for that day, because for them it's like a Yom Tov. So these are some of the halachot on the aspect of not eating meat during this period of the 9 days. One thing to remember is, while we mourn the destruction of Bet HaMikdash, and that is the reason why we don't eat meat and we don't drink wine, just as a sign of mourning, we should think of what we can do, not just what we cannot do, but rather what we can do also. What we can do is increase kindness, increase Ahavat Israel, love for our fellow Jews, increase all those good things that will be merits for Am Israel to bring the Mashiach Tzidkenu speedily in our days. Amen. Ken Yeh Ratzon. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Rosh Chodesh Tov and Shabbat Shalom.